The first thing I'd like to say is that this bull died instantly, and the flicking that you can see here is just the nerves that twitch after death, and is very common for all animals to have this. I mention this as there are other homesteaders probably watching, and I want you to be aware of it because it is probably the most confronting thing about butchering your own animals. The other thing to consider is that you have everything that you need to slaughter whichever animal it is that you're slaughtering. And it is also beneficial to have helpers. And as you can see here, we have two of our beautiful friends, Shona on the right and Riz on the left, and they came to help us do the whole process. The next big thing that we came across was the size and just how big he would be to maneuver. So we have a block and tackle that, as you can see here, but it's handy to have something else like a tractor, or as you can see here, Alex is using his dingo to move the carcass around to be able to hook him up and start the skinning process and gutting and all that sort of thing, because he was just way too heavy for even all of us to lift. I know some of you might see the kids in this picture and think, oh, I wouldn't do that. And that is absolutely your right to do so. But our kids are being raised in a homestead environment, learning about where our food comes from and having a respect for all of those things. We are all responsible for caring for the animal, showing it love and dignity and respect, and we are also responsible for a humane and ethical end to that animal's life. We are big on our children learning all avenues of the homestead life, from growing food and seed saving, animal husbandry and butchering. So you will see them throughout this video getting in, getting their hands dirty and helping us with the process. You'll also notice that throughout this process, quite often we get out the water hose and clean everything off. Now, keeping your workspace as clean as possible, we feel, is integral to health and hygiene, and also keeps things like flies at a minimum in your work area. Once you break through, you can just pull it like sheep, apparently.
Yeah, it's definitely not like sheep, bud.
Well, so the land did it. They did it all together and they all pulled down.
It's probably an old bull, so.
On the back.
No, you just say get the line.
Many hands make light work, and that seriously was so evident here. This video is going to be condensed down to, 40 minutes or so, but the whole process took us at least 5 hours, and that is including breaking it down into sections for the cool room. Now, usually you would break it into quarters, but he was so long when we had him hanging that we decided that we would break him into thirds, and that made for a little bit more manageable manhandling. I have to say that we found it quite a blessing that we have YouTube to refer to, because for at least a month before we butchered Harvey, we had been watching like Sow the Land and Justin Rhodes and people like that doing the homesteading thing in the US. And it was good to see their take on all of it and how they did their processing of their beasts, because it is quite a large ordeal to do. Not that we regret it, and we will be doing more on the farm. When we worked out the average price of beef, we were astounded to find that we'd saved ourselves thousands and thousands of dollars by processing this meat ourselves and putting it in the freezer as our year's worth of beef to go along with our lamb and pork that we also process ourselves. The only unfortunate sacrifice here is that because we had our kids learning how to skin the beast with us, we were not able to keep and use the hide, which is what we did want to do. But we felt it was more important in the end to have our kids involved in the process and learning alongside us and enjoying this lifestyle with us. They all had a really great time, and at the end of the day, I feel like it helped bond us as a family, so it was very beneficial.
That's all right, love. That's all right. You keep going. You're learning. That's okay. It's all right. You're doing a good job, though.
Mama, we gotta salt it.
Oh, good song.
We gotta salt it.
Alex, do you want me to get a tub? Because I want to save the lungs and everything for dog meat.
I'm just going to flash back here to show you guys that Alex is using his Sawzall to cut through the brisket. He put a finer blade on it than he would normally use for, like, say, wood and things like that. And obviously holding his hand down over it so that it wouldn't catch on skin or anything and possibly flick up and hurt anyone. But this is something I wanted to make mention of because no other piece of machinery we had was good enough for the job. It is important to take regular breaks. You will get worn out really quickly if you're just at it all night. Trust me, we all took regular breaks because it was very physically demanding. Thanks Noah for grabbing my phone and taking some photos for Instagram and just for the record for later down the track. I wonder if any of you have noticed the crucial mistake we made here. And it's coming up, but I wanted to make mention of it now. We forgot to cut out the anus area, which releases the gut. And you'll see that we've set up the quad bike with the trailer to be able to wheel underneath the carcass and drop the gut into, so we can take it out to a hole where we can put it in and plant a fruit tree over it. However, that little mission became a lot more difficult because we failed to remove the anus out. So don't do that when you're doing your own beef, and we won't ever do it again. Lesson learned.
Wash your hands, eat some chips, have a drink. Huh? Jaxie, wash your hands off and get your helmet safe. Oh my god!
Mom.
The size of the heart on
I
it.
was going to say the heart, yeah.
That's a heart.
I'll take a slice of that.
Yeah, we might eat that because that organ meat's really good for you.
That's big.
Like, cut it up into steak,
Like you did with the lamb.
yeah.
We sliced it lamb one. Like
Tastes like a
like-
loin
Salt,
chop.
pepper,
it's
bit of
amazing.
flour.
Yep.
Tastes like a loin chop, not good. Yeah. It just like falls apart in your mouth.
That's a heart. Damn, that looks like a chicken's like breast.
Hey, the ghoulies, what? We left the best bit just sitting there on the ground.
Oh,
We found it really handy as well to have a whole heap of these black tubs for putting the offal in and just different things that we might want to put in the cool room straight away and keep separate. We did want to respect every part of this animal, so every part of this animal has been used. So if it wasn't used for human consumption, then it's been minced up for the dogs and to make dog food at a later date.
Mate, join me down here, would you? Nah, mate.
Take note of what Riz and Brock are doing here. And they put their hand underneath the skin and grab a hold of the fur to help pull downwards and, you know, release the skin from the carcass. It's the best way we found to do it, and it made it a lot easier and quicker.
You ready, bro? Why don't we watch it?
And here we are. This is the part where we realise that the anus needed to be removed from the top of the cow to make it easier. Though I laughed in the video because of everyone's reaction, it is the biggest mistake we did make on the night, and it made it a lot harder. After this part, we had to pull it down, remove it from up inside, and then remove the gut completely out of the centre, so as not to have any of the meat tarnished. This part here is just Alex and Brock removing the lungs, and I'm pretty sure the pancreas or anything else, leaf fat inside the carcass, to be able to go in the cool room and be preserved for later. Here we have the carcass completely finished, and it's time to have a well-earned break.
we do.
Here we see Brock boning out the head so we can keep the cheeks, the eyes and the tongue.
Cheeks all on this side. They won't even fucking get it.
Yeah, we'll feed them all in here. Will we get them all in
Bit
here?
of manoeuvring. Might have to give you right back. Slow and steady. Here we go. Yeah, we'll get them all in. Couple on the back row. Sorry.
Again, many hands make light work. So, during this process, at various times, our different kids would come and go and participate and help us with it. Obviously, this was all by choice. They didn't have to do it, but they do love to learn, and especially Grace loves to be by my side and helping along with everything. We are by no means experts, which is why in the background you can see that Alex has set up a TV on the freezer so that we can watch the experts on YouTube. We love referring back to either the Bearded Butchers or the Farmstead Meatsmith, and I'll link those both below because they are excellent resources for all of your butchering needs of every type of animal that you could ever imagine butchering. Well, the animals you want to eat anyway.
And because last week got short.
So I'm just half thinking and half speaking. I should just concentrate. So we're going to go in. Is Grace coming in too?
We found that treating it a bit like a production line was a lot easier, so everyone had their set tasks. Grace and I did the packing and labelling, and it meant that we didn't have to keep switching out gloves unless Grace touched her hair or her face, which she kept doing, and I had to keep telling her to switch out gloves. But all in all, we all had our own jobs and it all went nice and smoothly. We tried to do as much as we could inside the cool room to keep the meat as cold as possible. So that meant someone had to go in and hold a torch for Alex when he was cutting off the meat because there is no light inside the cool room when the door is shut.
Oh, don't worry about me. I'll shut the freezer. Oh, that was freezing. It's so heavy. And that's freezing.
You'll see here that Alex is peeling back the layers of fat and removing the kidney. We made sure that we have used every part of this animal. It is the way that we show the proper respect for the animal that gave its life to nourish us. All of the offal was removed and stored separately for use. If not eaten by us and gifted to friends, then it would be used in dog food for our dogs down the track. All of the fat that you see Alex removing from it here is being used to render down and make tallow. Tallow is excellent for so many things. It has a high smoke point, so is great for deep frying and that sort of stuff, but also excellent in cosmetics and making your natural soaps and balms and that sort of stuff. So it's well worth saving and using that on your farmstead. Rendering it down is also really easy. You just need a large pot, and we find it works better when you mince the fat. Try and do that before you do any of the mince meat because it lubricates the inside of the mincer as well, so it serves a few purposes, but it also means that the fat stays clean and doesn't have meat through it. And then all you do is put it in a large pot, turn it on really low and let it melt down overnight or even longer if you like. Once it is completely liquid, you just store it in clean jars out of direct sunlight, and it saves for ages at room temperature, so you don't even need to put it in the fridge. When you think of all of the amazing products you can use with just one animal, you quickly realize that it is well worth doing and saving every part. So you'll see we also have a whole heap of different types of tub. So we got black tubs that we put bone in for bone broth and to give our dogs a treat and different things like that. But also we collected the fat in a separate one, as well as the trimmings for mince, and we had a separate black tub for offal, so that everything was being put back in the cool room to stay cold. It makes life a lot easier to work with really sharp knives. So you'll notice through this that Alex is quite often stopping and just giving his knives an edge again. He also has a meat saw that you'll see him use occasionally. That's for when we can't get certain parts of the beef through the bandsaw. It's quite a large animal, so you will need one of those if you're going to do it as well. Another thing to be really careful with is little people like to help, and sometimes they put their hands where they're not meant to, not realizing how dangerous it is. So you see us leave the room here. I take Grace out to have a chat about why she needs to leave the bandsaw completely alone and not try and help.
Yeah.
There's a bowl and a container behind you for when you get the cuts together.
Copy.
You move ahead of me. The cutting up and packaging of the entire animal took us well over 12 hours. I'd say between 16 to 20 hours to do it all completely. So it is quite labor intensive, and you'll see that we do interchange a little bit through the video. Like Noah comes in to help and we go and have a break, because if you can see behind Alex, there's a air conditioner in the room to keep the room at a very cold temperature as well. And it was a lot to be standing in there for hours on end. At the temperature set at like 16 degrees, so it was cold. When I say we use every part of the animal, we even boned out the head, kept the cheeks, we took out the eyeballs for a friend who wants to eat the offal. We couldn't use the brain because it was completely destroyed, which was by design. We wanted the death to be instant. So the type of bullet that Alex used was a ballistic tip, meaning it has a little tiny entry and just explodes once it's inside, making death instant and painless. Obviously, that's what we aim for. But also, the little tiny hole was because we even plan on keeping the skull. We did love him, and we were sad that we did have to butcher him after he got out with Deirdre. There's a video about it. If you want to see it, go back further. It's Where Have the Cows Gone, I think it's called. I'll link it below. But he was shot at by someone, and he was just never the same. He became quite aggressive and really quite dangerous for us to have on our farm. We are doing a really cool craft project with it, so stay tuned for that, because we're going to mount his skull with his horns on our wall, so that we always have him as a memory with us. And finally, we did the mince. I do want to point out a couple of things. It makes it a lot easier if you plan ahead and you want to make things like rissoles, or you want to marinate ribs, for example, or you want to put dry rubs and things on before you vac seal them. Then make sure you have those before the butchering day, so that when it comes time for packaging, you can do all that and package it up and have it ready to go, so that when you freeze it, all you have to do is pull it out of the freezer and you've got your meal ready to go. Also, remember that sharing is caring. We made sure that the people that stopped to help us and gave their time took home some of this beautiful farm-raised pasture beef. We hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please comment below, share it with your friends, hit the thumbs up button and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you so much for joining us, and until the next video, take care of each other and bye for now.